They downgraded a black woman from first class. Turns out, she owned the airline. By the time they found out, it was already too late. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside. This line is for actual executives. That's how it started. Not with a bomb threat. Not with a missed flight. Just a sentence. Sharp, smug, and designed to slice. Celeste Langston, draped in a navy trench coat tailored to military precision, didn't flinch. Her boarding pass remained in her hand. Seat 1A, Zurich-bound, first class, black label tier. A level above platinum. Above gold. Above petty. But the gate agent didn't check the pass. He checked her skin. You heard me, he repeated, louder this time. First class. Not guest upgrades, or She knew. The terminal paused. Phones hovered. A few curious glances broke the morning fog. And somewhere near the back, someone chuckled, low, white, and cowardly. Celeste said nothing. She didn't need to. Instead, she extended the pass. Smooth. Deliberate. But the agent didn't scan it. No, that would have confirmed everything too quickly. We'll need to reconfirm this, he said, waving over security like she was carrying anthrax and bad intentions. The guards arrived with that casual menace only a uniform can excuse. Step over here, ma'am, one said, already positioning himself like she might bolt. Like she was trying to smuggle herself into a seat her signature approved for the aircraft's budget. And just like that, Celeste Langston, Harvard-educated, Department of Defense consultant, CEO of an AI think tank with contracts in 5 nations, was being escorted away from a flight she paid for with pocket change, while the hedge fund bro behind her walked through sipping a $7 coffee like he owned the plane. But here's the thing. He didn't. She did. Well, 48% of the airline's parent company, to be exact. Not that the terminal staff knew. Not yet. Because this wasn't about a boarding pass. This wasn't about TSA protocols. This wasn't even about race, at least not in a way they could admit. This was about the illusion of control and what happens when the system tries to erase someone it doesn't understand. So, let's pause for a second. If you were her, stripped of dignity in public, flagged like a threat, humiliated in silence, what would you do? Would you fight back right there? Would you go quiet and write a strongly worded email? Or would you let the system finish the punch, just to pull the rug out after? Because if you think this is just another she got disrespected, then they got sued kind of story, you're not ready for what's coming. This isn't about getting revenge. It's about redefining who gets to hold the pen. And a spoiler? Celeste Langston always writes the final line. What would you do in her place? Comment below. And if you believe power should answer for how it behaves in silence. Stay tuned. The lounge was designed for silence. Glass walls, brushed chrome finishes, and air that smelled like citrus and elitism. It wasn't loud like the rest of the terminal. It whispered status in every polished surface. But the silence turned sharp when Celeste walked in. The receptionist glanced up, registered her face, then down at the scanner. A pause, then a frown. Your access has been revoked, ma'am. Celeste blinked once. Revoked? Yes. Looks like your ticket's been downgraded. You'll need to speak to guest services. The word downgraded landed like spit in her glass. I never requested any changes to my seat. The receptionist wasn't listening. Her eyes had moved to the man behind Celeste, a hedge fund director in a Patagonia vest holding 2 phones and zero awareness. Welcome, Mr. Holtzman. Help yourself to the bar. Celeste didn't move. She tapped her screen, pulled up her purchase confirmation, and showed the timestamp, the class code, and the black label status. The receptionist hesitated, then tapped a few keys like she was pretending to help. I'm sorry, she said. System must have updated. Of course it did. The system always updates when you have the wrong skin for the seat you paid for. Celeste turned away slowly, back stiff with that quiet rage that doesn't boil. It pressurizes. She passed the complimentary dining suite. She'd submitted her meal request days ago. No dairy, no sodium, autoimmune protocol. But the server scanned her pass and shook her head. Sorry, mom. You're not on the list anymore. She wasn't angry. Not yet. But something in her gut twisted. Not like pain, more like recognition. This wasn't incompetence. This was choreography. At security, it got worse. TSA scanned her ID and then the boarding pass. The scanner blinked green, but the agent shook his head anyway. You've been randomly selected for additional screening. Again, random. She looked behind her. A line of white faces passed through untouched. A woman in Lululemon leggings. No ID check. A teenager with Beats headphones. Waved through, but her? Hands out. Shoes off. The laptop case unzipped like a criminal's backpack. The agent opened her documents. Confidential papers. Sealed. He flipped them with bare hands. What's all this? He asked, like she owed him a syllabus. That's proprietary, she said, cool as mercury. Sure it is, he said, smirking. Finance stuff. I manage assets you'll never see, she replied. He chuckled. Yeah? Tell that to the IRS. A second agent passed by. Said nothing. A woman in line quietly filmed with her phone. Then put it away. No one spoke. The scanner beeped again. Something flagged. Her bag was pulled. She was led to a side table. Somewhere between the wand scan and the pat down, she realized this wasn't security. This was theater. An invisible algorithm had whispered, "Make her small," and the actors were following the script. Celeste looked the agent dead in the eye. If this is your system, she said softly, you should pray I never buy it. And the man paused, just long enough for her to know he heard that as a threat. It wasn't. It was a prophecy. Ever been told it's just protocol? Tell us what your protocol would be if the system turned against you. Her original boarding pass was gone. Somewhere between security and humiliation, it had vanished. Like a digital memory cleaned by someone who thought she wouldn't notice. Celeste stood in front of a self-check-in kiosk, inputting her confirmation number, global entry ID, and biometric key. The screen blinked, then printed. But it wasn't seat 1A. It was 32B. Economy. Middle seat. Near the toilets. She didn't blink. Not yet. She tapped again. System locked. No upgrades available. No seat change option. No override. Just that number. 32B. She turned to the service counter nearby, deserted. The same gate agents who'd mishandled her check-in were conveniently rotated out. The new one smiled with that vague, coach politeness that corporate drills into people to neutralize conflict. No one recognized her anymore. She was no longer Celeste Langston, the executive whose signature had greenlit this airline's digital overhaul. She was just the lady with a boarding issue. She approached another counter, one labeled Guest Resolution. The woman didn't look up. I've been downgraded without consent, Celeste said evenly. Restore my seat. Now, ma'am, if you're referring to Flight 882 to Zurich, the manifest locked. Manual edits require director-level override. Then find one. The agent hesitated. Then scribble a number on a receipt and slid it across the desk. You can escalate through that. Celeste didn't touch the paper. I'm not here to dial extensions. I'm here, and I'm not moving. Stillness. Controlled. Not loud. Not angry. Yet, the woman glanced around, like Celeste had broken protocol just by standing her ground. Moments later, she was flagged again. A young man in a navy blazer walked toward her with a clipboard and that look, the one that says, I'm about to pretend this is your fault. Ma'am, he said, stopping just short of personal space. This section is for priority travelers. I'll have to ask you to relocate. Celeste glanced at the outlet beside her. I'm a priority traveler. Not according to the manifest, he replied. Your name isn't listed. She looked at the wall. No saini. No posted restriction. Interesting, she murmured. Because there's no evidence of that policy. Anywhere. It's internal, he said. New update. How convenient. He blinked, unsure if she was serious or dangerous. Just doing what my lead told me. Celeste stood. Slowly. Unplug her charger like a queen uncoiling a blade. No threats. No theatriques. But every move she made felt measured. She didn't argue. She relocated. To a corner near a broken outlet. The armrest was sticky. The floor smelled of janitor wax and neglect. She didn't open her laptop. Not here. Not where power had been publicly, repeatedly revoked. Instead, she watched. Every eye that looked away too quickly. Every manager who turned without offering help. Every agent pretended they didn't see her. This wasn't delay. This was disappearance by design. And yet, something in her silence began to tighten. Not because she was afraid, but because they were too confident she still had no voice. Have you ever watched someone get erased in real time and no one said a word? Sometimes the loudest response is what comes after the silence breaks. She had just sat down again, tucked away in a quiet corner near gate C12, trying to salvage what remained of her morning. Phone charged. Itinerary open. One eye on the terminal, the other on her screen. Control, or the illusion of it, was a ritual. And then came the footsteps. Not rushed, not loud, but with purpose. A man in navy slacks and polished shoes stopped 2 feet from her seat. Behind him, a woman in a gray skirt suit and corporate lanyard held a tablet. "Ms. Langston?" the woman asked, like she was reading a warning label. Celeste didn't flinch. "We'd like to ask a few questions regarding one of your personal items," the woman continued. Celeste raised an eyebrow. "Such as?" "A wristwatch. Patek Philippe. Platinum casing. The serial number doesn't match our merchandise database." Her breath slowed. "You're what?" "We've had reports of counterfeit luxury items being trafficked through major hubs. It's part of an internal audit. Nothing personal. Nothing personal." The most insulting phrase ever invented by cowards with clipboards. "I didn't purchase this at your duty-free counter," Celeste said coldly. "I bought it at auction. It's insured, certified, documented, and none of your business." The man stepped forward, holding a velvet pouch. "We're asking to verify it in your presence." Celeste stood. Not quickly, not defensively, just tall. "You're asking me to prove ownership of my own property because it didn't appear in your overpriced mall database?" The woman opened her mouth, closed it. "We're not accusing you of anything. You're accusing me of being the kind of woman who shouldn't wear something like this." The man's hand tensed around the pouch. "If we can just inspect it." "No." The word sliced clean. Nearby passengers started to turn. The whisper was spreading. 2 kids across the aisle stared. A man with a laptop angled his screen to hide that he was filming. Celeste reached down, opened her own bag, and pulled out the watch. Held it in 2 fingers. "Hi, clear. Since you're so interested," she said, her voice icy. "Here's your lesson." She turned the watch to reveal the engraving inside. "Do you know what this means?" she asked, gaze locked on the woman. "It means you're in the wrong lane of the food chain." The woman took a step back. "Well, we'll log this as resolved." Celeste returned the watch to her case. "Don't log anything," she said without breaking eye contact. "Log your apologies." She sat down again, calm, composed. But something had shifted. Around her, the energy warped. Eyes didn't just glance, they avoided. Staff walked past like she was a glitch they hadn't been trained to fix. She wasn't a passenger anymore. She was a variable, uncontained, unapologetic, unforgiven for refusing to shrink. Have you ever been asked to prove your worth? Just because someone assumed it didn't belong to you? You're not alone. Her name wasn't on the priority list. Her bag was no longer traceable. Her watch had been inspected like contraband. But none of that compared to what happened next. A whisper, soft, intentional, just loud enough to pierce the hum of the terminal. "Takia. Special attention. Code 37C. History of defiance. Flag for behavior." Celeste didn't hear it directly, but she felt it. The shift was immediate. People didn't just glance anymore, they confirmed. Face, then screen. Screen, then face. But she was a barcode with attitude. She approached another service kiosk. The agent smiled, scanned her pass, then stopped. His smile evaporated like it had been fake all along. "I'm sorry, Ms. Langston," he said, blinking at the monitor. "There's a hold on your profile." "What kind of hold?" I'm not authorized to explain that." She leaned in. "You're standing in front of me with my entire travel history on your screen. You're absolutely authorized. You're just scared." He didn't answer, but his eyes darted left, then right, like he needed permission to breathe. Behind him, another employee was typing rapidly. Her monitor blinked red. The word "suppress" appeared next to Celeste's name. Another note populated beneath it. "Defer resolution. Limit escalation. Avoid engagement." Avoid engagement. Not just a policy. A silencing. Celeste stepped back. Not in surrender. In calculation. Across the terminal, she spotted the man again. Trent Maxwell. clipboard in hand. Airport issued smugness radiated from his posture. He was smiling. That training video smile. The kind they use to deny refunds, revoke upgrades, or escort you to the edge of belonging. Their eyes locked. And Trent? He didn't flinch, didn't wave, didn't even pretend. He just stared, like a man admiring his own handiwork. He turned, whispered something into his radio. And just like that, another employee intercepted Celeste at the vending machine. "Ma'am," he said, too polite to sound sincere. "This area is for active first-class passengers." Celeste held up her card. Inserted it. Declined. She tried again. Declined. The man at the snack station tilted his head. "Maybe try the Concourse Cafe?" She didn't argue. Didn't plead. But the water bottle behind the glass never looked more symbolic. The algorithm hadn't just removed her from a list. It had written her out of the room. Have you ever watched a place shrink around you until it didn't even recognize you were human? Some systems don't collapse from outrage. They collapse from exposure. "Ma'am, we'll need to conduct a secondary screening." Celeste looked up. A TSA agent, stocky, smiling like a game show host, had stepped in her path. Too cheerful, too rehearsed. "I've already been screened," she replied, voice clipped. "Just a quick random check," he said. Random. Again. Nothing about this day had been random. Not the seat reassignment. Not the revoked lounge access. Not the missing bag. Not the digital gag order. And definitely not this. Celeste stared at him for a long second, then nodded once. Phoenix. She was escorted to a secondary screening station, just off the main flow of foot traffic. Out of sight, but not sound. 2 agents were already there. Female. Gloves already pulled on. The setup was surgical, like they'd done this many times, just not to someone who would remember every single second of it. "Raise your arms, please," one said, monotone. Celeste obeyed. The scanner wand passed down her shoulders. Her back. Her arms. "No, babe. No issue." And then came the touch. It started at her waist. The agent's hands pressed in, too firmly, fingers too slow, down one hip, then inward. Celeste flinched. That's not standard. No response. The agent crouched slightly, continued down her inner thigh, pressed, paused, and stayed. Celeste stepped back instinctively. Enough. Her voice didn't rise. It cracked, but it held. The younger agent looked up, not apologetic, just bored. "Ma'am, you're delaying the process." "I'm ending it," Celeste said, steel returning to her tone. That wasn't a pat-down. That was harassment. A supervisor approached. "Is there a problem?" "Yes," she said. "You're manufacturing one." The man's eyes narrowed. "Ma'am, we're following federal protocol." "No," she said. "You're following a profile." The gloves came off. Literally. The agent stepped back. But the damage was done. Celeste zipped her bag, still trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the effort of restraint. She walked away without waiting for dismissal. No one stopped her. They didn't need to. They'd already put their fingerprints on her morning and called it safe. The boarding announcement for Zurich echoed faintly overhead. Her name wasn't on it. Of course not. She was never meant to board. She was meant to break. Celeste didn't. She adjusted her coat, recentered her breath, and kept walking. Every step wasn't just movement, it was defiance. A protest. A reminder that even stripped of every perk, every pass, every ounce of surface privilege, she was still dangerous, because she was still here. Have you ever had to stand still while someone crossed a line, then told you it was policy? Some violations aren't loud. They're procedural. She stood near gate C12, still listed as standby, still exiled from the first-class manifest her money paid for, and her influence had once helped create. But now something shifted, not around her, behind her, in the systems. Across the concourse, Trent Maxwell stood flanked by 2 junior staffers, issuing smooth commands with his signature smirk. Clipboard in hand, posture straight, confidence oozing from every pore. To the untrained eye, he looked in control. To Celeste, he looked nervous. His voice was just a little too loud. His instructions, repeated. Twice. Verify that access list again. I don't want anyone slipping past priority filters. The assistant blinked. We already ran it twice. Same output. then reset the manifest. Force sync. The girl frowned. It's not responding. Trent's jaw flexed. What do you mean, not responding? I mean, it's locked. And not by us. For the first time in hours, Celeste's breath eased, just a notch. She didn't smile. She didn't smirk. But in her stillness, something exhaled. This was the moment the lion realizes the cage has a loose hinge, and the zookeeper's hands are shaking. From her corner, Celeste watched as 3 executives began circling near the glass-walled conference suite at Gate D6. The suits are too expensive for operations. The faces are too stiff for customer service. One of them picked up a phone. Another pointed toward the check-in logs. The third was watching her. Trent didn't notice. He was too busy tapping his earpiece, barking into static. "Give me concourse ops." Pause. "Now." But ops wasn't answering. Because ops had just been alerted. Not by Celeste. By protocol. The kind that triggers automatically when certain accounts, flagged for systemic review, are tampered with too aggressively. The kind of failsafe embedded quietly by firms like hers. Because Celeste Langston didn't just invest in airlines. She invested in the code that runs them. At 10:37 a.m., a priority alert triggered in the mainframe of Havenire's parent company. 3 system-wide anomalies. Unauthorized reclassification of a black label executive profile. Pattern suppression of boarding rights tied to internal bias markers. And a high-risk flag on a whistleblower clause linked to the Zurich Manifest. None of this required Celeste to press a button. She had already written the code. All she had to do was wait. She checked her phone. No calls. No messages. Just a secure notification blinking quietly. Inbound escalation protocol initiated. Confirmation pending. Celeste slid the device back into her coat pocket. Still composed. Still invisible to the room, full of men pretending the floor wasn't caving in. But across the concourse, the glass started to shake. Ever watch someone climb a ladder, only to realize they were on your trapdoor? Stay seated. The fall's just beginning. She didn't run. Didn't storm off. Didn't even raise her voice. Celeste Langston walked across the terminal like a woman with no weight to carry, except a manila folder that, if dropped, could fracture stock prices. She approached the nearest airline help desk. Not the guest services. Not the kiosk. The real desk. The one with brochures printed on thick cardstock. The one with laminated signs that said, "We're here to help." The one no one ever believed. The woman behind the desk was mid-type, probably logging a complaint about legroom from someone with a golf bag and too many opinions. Celeste didn't wait. She placed the folder down. A sharp, hollow click. The desk agent blinked. "I need you to deliver this to Mr. Leonard Westbrook," Celeste said, voice flat. "Vice President of International Operations." Confirmed delivery. The woman straightened slightly. "Mom, I'm sorry, I don't usually handle." Celeste leaned in. "Tell him the file contains 3 months of internal behavior audits, conducted covertly, across 5 U.S. terminals, all involving Havenire personnel, all under executive oversight." Now, the woman froze. Her hands didn't move. Her face didn't shift, but something in her body reset. Celeste continued. Time-stamped reports, employee IDs, passenger complaints, digital logs, patterns of suppression, misclassification, obstruction, and retaliation. If he doesn't confirm receipt within 15 minutes. She tapped the folder once. It goes public. The agent didn't respond verbally. She just reached forward, slowly, picked up the file like it was radioactive, and walked away. Celeste turned and took her seat again. Not near the broken outlet this time. Not in the forgotten corner. She sat in full view of the terminal, of the gate, of Trent, and watched. At first, nothing changed. People still walked by. Screens still blinked. The same looping playlist of instrumental jazz piped through the speakers. But across the concourse, near gate D6, shadows began to move. Executives. Senior ones. Leonard Westbrook stepped out from a restricted hallway. Tall, pale, his suit so pressed it looked CGI. He spotted her instantly. Their eyes met. He didn't smile. He didn't fake recognition. He remembered. They had met once, briefly, at a World Trade Summit in Brussels. Back then, She was just the woman in the third row asking inconvenient questions about logistics bias and cross-border screening inconsistencies. Back then, she was dismissible. Today, she was a storm. Leonard crossed the terminal without breaking pace. "Ms. Langston," he said, breath short. "I've just seen. You've been briefed." He nodded. "The materials are comprehensive." "So, is the problem," Celeste said. "Systemic. Cultural. Codified in silence. We didn't authorize this treatment. But you sustained it." Leonard glanced toward the glass conference suite behind him. Inside, chaos moved like static. People pacing, phones pressed to ears, documents flying. "Please allow us time to investigate." "You have until the next flight," she replied. "After that, there won't be a brand left to recover." She didn't wait for an answer. She turned away, not to retreat, to watch it burn. Behind her, the terminal still played jazz. But the silence wasn't smooth anymore. It trembled. It started with a flicker. Just one. A gate screen, near Concourse B, blinked from green to red for a half-second, then stabilized. No one noticed. It happened again. Then, in unison. Within 60 seconds, every Havenire screen in Terminal C shimmered like a bad signal, until they all read the same thing. Operational delay. Standby adjustment under review. Passengers leaned in. Agents stared. Supervisors began whispering in clipped tones, flipping through manuals that hadn't been touched in years. And Trent Maxwell, he was still holding his clipboard, still pretending this was temporary, until his earpiece clicked. "Maxwell," came a voice, female, clipped corporate. "Concourse Ops. You're needed in boardroom B. Immediate." His jaw was clenched. "Copy that." He turned to his assistant, eyes wider than before. "Cover me here." The girl nodded, hesitantly. "Everything okay?" "Routine check-in," he lied, adjusting his blazer. But his palms were sweating. He walked fast, faster than usual, but tried not to look rushed. Boardroom B was a crisis room. It hadn't been used in 3 years. The last time it opened, half the terminal had been shut down for a bomb threat. This time, the bomb was already inside. He stepped in. The door clicked shut behind him. Inside were 2 regional directors, a legal advisor from headquarters, and a printed file waiting in the center of the table. Labeled, Monroe Investigation Files. Trent frowned. "What is this?" The woman closest to the file didn't stand, didn't greet, didn't soften. She lifted the top sheet and turned it toward him. "Do you know who Celeste Langston is?" Trent gave a half smirk. "Some passenger with a chip on her shoulder? Caused a fuss. We're handling it." The room went dead silent. The second director leaned in, voice like ice cracking underfoot. "She's not some passenger. She's the primary investor behind 3 of our institutional partnerships. She holds voting shares through Horizon Equity. She has veto power through Nexus Holdings." Trent blinked. "That's not possible." The legal advisor didn't flinch. It already happened. He slid another sheet across the table. Financial loss. $615 million over 5 fiscal quarters. All triggered in the last 30 minutes. "And now," the director continued, "you have 2 options. Sign this resignation and liability waiver, or the board will release your name to the media with a full audit of your conduct." Trent stared at the envelope. Didn't touch it. Didn't blink. The screen behind him buzzed to life. News alerts. Market shockwaves. Whispers of federal contract terminations. He stood, then sat back down. For the first time in 15 years, Trent Maxwell had no script to follow. No one was waiting for his approval. No one cared about his policies. No one feared his voice. And across the glass wall, just beyond his sight line, Celeste Langston sat in perfect stillness. Not celebrating, not smiling, just waiting, like a chess master who'd made her final move 3 turns ago and was simply giving the board time to catch up. The terminal cracked with static. Then came the voice. Not Trent's. Not operations. Something firmer. Federal. Final. "Attention all passengers. Effective immediately, all Orion Air International flights are suspended for administrative reevaluation. Please proceed to designated service desks for further instruction." The reaction was instant. Phones were pulled out. Conversations flared. Gate agents froze mid-sentence. Trent was still in the boardroom, but it didn't matter anymore, because no one was waiting for his clipboard. Outside the walls of the terminal, across town in a federal office near Capitol Hill, a fax machine spat out a letter of cancellation. $2.1 billion, 6-year defense contract. Nullified. On grounds of breach of the non-discrimination clause. Active civil rights investigation. Failure to comply with transparency standards. No press conference. No, we're sorry. Just collapse. The stock dropped 18% in 2 hours. By noon, shareholder value had hemorrhaged nearly $900 million. TV anchors scrambled for sound bites. They couldn't find any, because Celeste Langston wasn't giving interviews. She didn't want attention. She wanted function, and she got it. While the CEO of Havenire stood pale beneath conference lights, reading an apology statement with trembling fingers, Celeste sat quietly in gate D1. New airline, new gate, new boarding pass, hand-delivered by a Nexus Technologies liaison. Her old bag, damaged, violated, had been replaced. Documents reprinted, files restored, clean, precise, intact, like she had never been touched. Because now, she couldn't be. The speaker above her chimed. Final boarding call for Geneva, gate D1. Celeste stood. A young black woman near the bridge looked up. Soft eyes. Nervous smile. I saw what happened, she whispered. I work with flight systems. Because of today, I am staying. Celeste didn't deliver a speech. No, thank you. No, you're welcome. Just a single nod. A language of legacy. They boarded together. As the aircraft doors sealed, the final wave of chaos still bloomed below. Review boards convened. Federal guidelines updated. Airline partnerships frozen. TSA protocols amended with third-party monitors. They would call it reform. But in truth, it was reckoning. Orion Air returned to operation 6 months later. New logo, new leadership, new slogan, clear skies, clear conscience. But the shadow of what happened still hovered like contrail scars. And Celeste? She never flew them again. She didn't need to. Her flight had already changed everything. They didn't expect her to stay. They didn't expect her to speak. And they sure as hell didn't expect her to own the system that tried to erase her. Because some people don't raise their voices. They raise the stakes. This wasn't just about a seat. It wasn't about a pass. It wasn't even about power. It was about presence. About what happens when someone refuses to disappear quietly and makes sure the silence never feels safe again. So ask yourself, how many others have vanished without anyone noticing? And what if the next one doesn't? If this story struck a nerve? If you've ever been told to step aside, to wait your turn, to know your place, then this space was made for you. Share it. Save it. Show someone who thinks none of this ever happens. And for more stories that hit back, subscribe to Story Precious. Because some stories don't go viral. They go to court.